A jury in New York has found former Honduran President Juan Hernandez guilty of trafficking hundreds of tons of cocaine into the United States. Prosecutors say he ran Honduras like a narco-state.
He was long considered a top U.S. ally in Central America. Now he faces a life in prison. Juan Hernandez has been found guilty of 3 counts of drug trafficking and weapons conspiracy. His lawyer says they will appeal the decision.
He says he is innocent, and he says he still has the strength to keep fighting.
Hernandez was president of Honduras for 2 consecutive terms, between 2014 and 2022. During his leadership, the country received more than $50 million in anti-narcotics assistance from the U.S., as well as additional millions of dollars in security and military aid. Prosecutors later uncovered that he was linked with drug traffickers, including former Mexican drug lord Joaquin Guzman, known as El Chapo. He was accused of helping smuggle around 500 tons of cocaine to the U.S. Hernandez was arrested just weeks after completing his 2nd term as president, and he was extradited to the United States 2 months later in April 2022. After a 2-week trial, jurors in Manhattan reached the verdict, celebrated by Honduran citizens gathered outside the courthouse.
Those of us who are here, who have emigrated, know that we are the consequence of a failed state that has been controlled and managed by people who have used their country and its institutions for drug trafficking.
I hope that the verdict and his arrest serves as a precedent, so that authorities can no longer harm our country. That they devote themselves to serving our people, not destroying our people.
It's the first time in more than 3 decades that a former foreign leader has been convicted of drug trafficking in the U.S.
Now joined by Sanho. He's a fellow at the Institute for Policy Studies and director of its Drug Policy Project in Washington, D.C. Welcome to DW News. Now, would you agree that this conviction is a victory for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency?
Well, victory is, it's not so much a victory as it is an ongoing process of shoveling water, basically. That it really doesn't produce many substantial long-term changes, because we have this long pattern in Latin America of presidents, attorneys general, drug czars, military officers being complicit in the drug economy. There's an old saying in this field, and I've been working in drug policy for 25 years, that drug prohibition is an equal opportunity corruptor. It's just that some people are in a vastly superior position to profit from that corruption. And that, of course, are the senior officials, because they have access not only to the policing side of it, but they can also tax and control which gangs get to smuggle and what types of drugs and turf lines and that sort of thing. So it's a fantastically lucrative space.
Right. And why did the U.S. support former President Hernandez with millions of dollars in the first place when there was this controversy around him?
Yeah, he's been a strategic ally for quite a while now. Part of it was that the U.S. had other concerns. Trafficking was one of them, but also the migrant crisis, which was beginning to really blossom under his presidency. And so many were prepared to look the other way, it seems, in furtherance of these other objectives. It was cracking down on crime, other types of crime, rather, and that sort of thing.
Right. Your project is focusing on ending the damage caused by the drug wars. What needs to be done now?
It's important to remember this is almost the same kind of scenario we got caught up in over and over again a century ago during alcohol prohibition. Because what we're talking about today with these drugs, whether it's cocaine, heroin, amphetamines, or any other type of drugs, we're talking essentially about minimally processed agricultural and chemical commodities that cost pennies per dose to manufacture. The reason they're so incredibly profitable and expensive today is because of drug prohibition. And so the last people who want the drug war to end are drug traffickers and drug warriors, because neither side can make a reasonable living without the other. It's prohibition that acts as an indirect or unintentional price support, if you will, for drug traffickers that makes these substances priceless when they ought to cost pennies per dose.
And
that's corrupting.
And just in 20 seconds, has the U.S. war on drugs failed?
Yes, it's failing every day, and it's failing even worse. Because now we've replaced traditional plant-derived drugs with synthetic drugs like fentanyl and methamphetamines, which are far more problematic, easier to smuggle, easier to produce, and cheaper than before.
Right. Okay. Sanho Tree, fellow at the Institute for Policy Studies. Thank you very much for speaking to us.